it is September 9th, 2023. I am flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin here. As Ryan pointed out before we press the magic button, both of us are now 0-1 for week one because that happened.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be wearing a Lions jersey, but they take the win game number one, 21-20 over the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs that did not look the part after game number one. And Joel, I don't know how much of the game you actually saw,
I
but
was I
yeah.
was listening to the majority of it, and then all of a sudden, I was tuning into something else, and then I look, and I'm like, "Holy crap! They can actually win!"
Yeah, they the MVP of the game for the Detroit Lions was one Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll get into that here
Yeah,
in a little bit,
yeah. As,
but
as I saw, they already came out with the memes where they photoshopped bricks onto his hands and one of the Halloween costume memes, and it was just so bad he had to deactivate his Twitter, and you even had Patrick Mahomes who was defending the dude. I mean, yeesh.
yeah, I hear they're naming the next COVID variant Kadarius because then no one will catch it.
Ouch.
Anywho, yeah, we'll dive into this game. The Lions do go into Arrowhead and win 21-20. And the Chiefs did not look competent on the offensive side of the ball without Travis Kelce, who of course missed the game. And then again, no Juju Smith-Schuster, who was released and let go in free agency in the offseason. And I got to say, Sky Moore didn't look great. Justin Ross didn't look great. And it was really rough. I don't know if Joel's still there. Not sure why I'm getting a double. Yay, technical difficulties. I'll have Joel rejoin. If I can. This is going awesome. Just awesome. But yeah, the Lions do go in. They pull the big upset in week number one as we wait on Joel to get back in here because technology is going absolutely crazy. So let's go over some stats real quick while we wait on Joel. Jared Goff, 22 of 35 for 253 and a touchdown as Joel's back. That was bizarre.
Off to a great start.
Hey, we're on pace for what the Chiefs did week one. But yeah, Jared Goff, 22 253 and a touchdown, very efficient in this game. Didn't have the best stat line, but was at least serviceable in terms of the game. David Montgomery, 21 carries for 74 yards and a late touchdown that gave the Lions the win. The big question going into this game with the backfield of the Lions was how was that split going to look between Montgomery and Gibbs? Well, it was 3-1 in favor of Montgomery on carries. However, Jahmyr Gibbs, 7 carries for 42 yards, averaging 6 per carry, did get 2 receptions for 18 yards as well. So not the fantasy night you would have hoped for out of Jahmyr Gibbs, but game number one, still plenty of time. Better. Josh Reynolds actually leading the way in yards for the Lions, 4 for 80, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 for 71 and a touchdown. And rookie Sam Laporta, 5 receptions for 39 yards. Not spectacular.
Still better than Sky Moore.
But better than Sky Moore. And for a rookie tight end, game number one, PPR, 8.9 points. Not the worst you could do. I mean, the tight end position is a little bit of a cesspool. And then we'll go to the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, 21 of 39 passing, 226 in the yardage, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. That was definitely not his fault as he hit Kadarius Toney squarely between the hands. And then he dropped it because that's what Kadarius Toney did. Pat Mahomes also leading rusher on the team, 6 carries for 45 yards. Pacheco, 8 for 23. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 6 for 22.
The return of Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Isaiah Pacheco led the way in receptions, 4 catches for 31 yards. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 2 for 48. Justin Watson, 2 for 45. Noah Gray filling in for Travis Kelce, 3 for 31. Rashee Rice, 3 for 29 and a touchdown. Didn't look too bad, only on 5 targets. But yeah, it was bad. Kadarius Toney, who we mentioned, 1 catch for 1 yard and had more impactful drops than he did catches.
It's a good
Um,
thing that you can't charge wide receivers with interceptions or
Not yet.
so. Like,
Yeah, I heard the fantasy footballers make the case for errors like they have in baseball that would go against the receiver because that one hit him square in the hands, and that's just rude.
if he had just
Sky Moore, though,
made
0 for 0.
yeah, because you have to think that if he just made one or even two of those catches, it might have changed the entire feeling of the game. From because if KC could have even gotten the field goal would have won it, but they just couldn't get anything going.
Well, you start with the drop on the what ended up being an interception. Goes right into the hands of Branch, who turns it back for a touchdown. That's 7 points in for the Lions. If he just catches that ball or drops it straight down, even that makes a huge difference in the game. Later in the game, he had a drop that would have given a first down on 4th down, led to a field goal when the drive would have continued, could have gotten a touchdown. Then had a drop late on a clear first down big play, just outright did not hold on to it. Ends up being, I believe that ended up being a punt, or it was the turnover on downs drive. I can't remember which one. It was pretty bad either way.
Plus, then you also
Um,
had some questionable play calling by Andy Reid late that definitely had everyone scratching their head.
It's hard to blame him for going after it because you do have Patrick Mahomes, who typically comes up big in those situations.
Typically,
And he is used to having a guy like Kelsey or a guy like Tyreek or a guy even like Juju that you can say, hey, go catch this, go make this one play that we need you to make. And unfortunately, when you're going to on that last drive, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, false start, and then Justin Watson. There's nobody out there you can depend on to make that play. So little bit concerning for the Chiefs. Of course, they didn't have Travis Kelsey. That is going to affect the offense, but Noah Gray was solid. So I don't know. The Lions deserve the win in this game. They played a good game defensively. They were very good. I don't know how much Travis Kelsey coming back is going to improve this team. He is a good weapon, but everybody under the sun now is going to know if we stop Kelsey, there's nothing else here. So expect to see when they play the Dolphins, that could be who Xavier Howard is covering is Travis Kelsey. Say, you're not getting us. Okay, we'll risk it with Toney. We'll risk it with Rice or Moore or whoever, but it's not going to be Travis Kelsey. And that could be a problem all season long for the Chiefs.
and I suspect also somebody's contract demands might before the next game be ironed out.
Yeah, Jones sat out, defensive lineman. The defense looked pretty good. So I don't know how much that's going to help them. Again, the defense only gave up 14 points with that pick 6, but
Crucial give up.
Shut them down. But credit to the Lions for winning this game. Credit to the Lions for going for a fake punt inside their own 20-yard line early in the first quarter, middle of the first quarter, that led to their first touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So credit to the Lions. I picked them to win the Super Bowl, and I feel a lot better about it today than I did at the time I made that pick. I don't think they're going to win it, but that's my problem. But it's a good start for the Detroit Lions. The hype seems to have been real. We'll see if they can keep it up because, of course, this is a one solo big-time prime-time game against the defending champs. They came ready to play. They came amped up and good to go. We'll see if they have a letdown as they go into next week because you're not going to play Kansas City on banner raising night every week. Next week, they play Seattle. Seattle was a surprise team last year. They are at home. Maybe they get this going really early and they start very, very hot. But Detroit winning on week number 1 is at the very least a very good start to their season.
Yeah, because you had one of those NFL meme sites do a very awesome cartoon where they had a whole bunch of things going on. And one of the things was you had Andy Reid with an empty tray and not eating anything. And you had a very happy Coach Campbell munching down on a hamburger.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that one too. So the Lions start 1-0. Kansas City Chiefs, Joel and I all start 0-1. And takeaways from this one. Do you think this proves the Lions are worthy of the hype, if not for real?
I definitely think so because the hype carries over from last season. Last season, the Lions denied the Packers entry into the playoffs via beating them at home and at Lambeau Field. And now here we go. We turn around and it's the Lions showing they're for real by beating the Chiefs. And I know people could have some caveat or two about this game, but still, bottom line is when all is said and done, when you're looking at the tally sheet, they beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead and got the job done. It was a hell of a game to start off. I think it was better for reality than fantasy. Definitely. Fantasy was kind of atrocious, but
Yeah.
nice start to the football league. This is what you like. You like to have parity. You like to have the team come into everyone's thinking Chiefs, 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 Chiefs. Well, okay, Kelsey's out, blah 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 blah. This out, that out. Well, there's still the Chiefs, and then Lions come in and punch them in the mouth.
Yeah, like I said when we did our preview show, this was my most confident pick of the week before Travis Kelce was out. I still stayed on the Chiefs, but that confidence went down from the 16-point game to about the 5 or 6 point game. So it did make a difference, but credit to the Lions for going into a hostile environment and getting the job done. We're not going to talk about every false start that happened, but they only called it once, and it was real bad to the point where in the third quarter, the officiating consultant for the broadcast was like, yeah, he's illegal every play. So that'll be something we have to keep an eye on going forward for the Chiefs as well. All right, let's go into some quick news. First and foremost, not a big surprise here, but officially Cooper Kupp on the IR, eligible to return in week number 5. He's going to miss the first 4 games. Did have a setback with that hamstring injury, so not a huge surprise that this is happening. But unfortunately for the Rams, they're going to be without their best player for at least the first 4 weeks.
Yay, if you drafted Cooper Kupp like I did.
Yeah, I've got a share of Cooper Kupp. Hopefully I can get by. I mean, if you can go 2-2, losing your first round pick for 5 weeks, and he comes back and he's Cooper Kupp, you are just fine. And the one league I do have him in, the other player is my wife this week. It's a family league. Had Isaiah Pacheco, didn't go crazy, so I think I can manage and get by on that one.
You're just hoping he doesn't exacerbate the injury any more after he comes back and then misses extended time.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I think they're smart enough to say, you're a great player. Just sit down, put your feet up, relax for a little bit, get better. And then when you're back, we'll get you on a treadmill for a couple days so you are 100% back in shape. But players at that level, they're going to be just fine. The Buccaneers and Mike Evans did not reach a deal today by the deadline. So he's going to play out the last year of his contract as is. There's no negotiation until after the season. We'll see what that means long term. It's possible this makes Mike Evans a trade candidate in the middle of the season, right before the trade deadline. Again, we saw a team last night or 2 nights ago that is in need of a wide receiver. So there will be a market for a guy like Mike Evans as the Bucs do decide to put him on the block. But still some time for them to find out what's going on with the season. If the Bucs are better or more competitive than we're expecting, I don't think he gets traded. But if this team comes out and is 1-6 going into the trade deadline, Mike Evans very possibly, at least for a short period of time, will be traded away. He might want to come back. He wants to play his whole career as the Tampa Bay Buccaneer, but if he gets traded, all bets are off. Let's see. Zach Moss of the Colts downgraded to doubtful. So Deion Jackson could be a very valuable play. We'll get into that game later today. Players out already this week. DJ Chark, Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers, who you drafted in the 6th round, most people. And there's some good defensive players out here. Teron Armstead for the Dolphins. That is a big injury as well, the offensive lineman. And then Traquan Smith for the Saints. Not that anybody's going to play him, but he is going to be out as well. All right, let's jump into week number 1.
This is we're already 0-1, yep. So
already off to 0-1 starts. I think I started 5-11 last year, so we're going to try and do better than that. As we go to game number 1, this one is I believe, a very true toss-up.
Which one is that?
Carolina and Atlanta. So Adam Thielen is going to play. He was questionable. Miles Sanders is going to play. I think Sanders is going to be in most lineups where you had to draft him. He's going to be at least a flex option as well. And outside of that, no DJ Chark. Bryce Young is probably not a start this week. And you can almost – there's really nothing else besides Miles Sanders. For the Falcons, I don't recommend playing Kyle Pitts until you see him do something. So you might have to. If you drafted him, you're probably going to have to play him, but it's going to be real uncomfortable for you. Bijan Robinson, of course, going to be in the starting lineup, the first-round draft pick. You might as well play him. Carolina's got a good defense, and it's the first game of his career, so temper the expectations. He could explode. He could also be a little disappointing this week. And then Drake London, where you drafted him, he's at least going to be in flex consideration. Carolina is going to be ascending, I think, by the end of the year. I think with Bryce Young, this team's going to get better and better and better as he gets into the flow of things. But game number one for a rookie, number one overall draft pick, hasn't won their first game since 2002, which means if a child born at that time, he's able to be drinking in a bar to watch the game next time the number one overall pick wins it, because it's been at least 21 years. Atlanta, they're a little bit of a sneaky, trendy pick to win the NFC South. Of course, anybody in that division can win it, but I wonder who you've got in this one, Joel.
Yeah, definite toss-up, but I tend to lean to Atlanta strictly because not only Bijan Robinson, even though I know, since 1993, 11 top overall picks have gone 1-9-1 in their first game, but not only do you have Bijan Robinson, definitely a popular pick in fantasy this year, you also have London, and dare I say, I know a lot of people have been avoiding him like the plague. Kyle Pitts, you look at both teams, and I know that the sexier pick might be Carolina, but I think I'm going with the Falcons just because they seem to have the better team, where Carolina traded away a good portion of the team. DJ Moore, boom, gone to Chicago. CMC, boom, gone to San Francisco. How much of a core do they have left? Got to go with the Falcons.
Well, they played better without CMC last season, win-loss wise. They did get Miles Sanders back. They seemingly have an expectation to play him like a CMC light. They want to get him 50 to 60 catches this year, plus use him as a 3-down back, so maybe that works out. Adam Thielen, I don't think is completely toast, and then Jonathan Mingo and Terrace Marshall, if he can play, they're not that bad on the weapons wise. It's just a little scary for fantasy assets because you don't know where it's going to go. And I'm going to take Carolina. I think Bryce Young is a better quarterback than Desmond Ridder. I think the Panthers have a better defense than Atlanta. And, I saw an article what even the beat writers for Atlanta are down on Kyle Pitts this season. So it's hard for me to think Desmond Ridder is going to be capable enough passing the ball to open up that backfield for Bijan Robinson. I fully expect 7 or 8 guys in the box every play trying to stop him from beating them. And they'll say, Desmond Ridder, if you can beat us, go ahead and do it. And I don't think he's capable of doing it. So I'm going to take the Panthers in this one. And we move on to another rookie quarterback making their first debut start. And that is CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans going into Baltimore to face the Baltimore Ravens. For the Texans, Dameon Pierce beginning in possibly end of list. Dalton Schultz at tight end maybe is going to be in some lineups just because, well, tight end gets a little thin pretty quickly, and they're going to have to pass the ball in this game at least a little bit. For Baltimore, J.K. Dobbins in your lineup. Lamar Jackson's going to be in your lineup. The question here is Mark Andrews. Earlier this week, God willing, he will play was the quote. So not necessarily what you want to hear. So maybe you want to have an Isaiah Likely share or a good backup, maybe a Tyler Higbee we'll get to later. And then at that wide receiver position, I don't know if you want to play anybody in this game. Remember, Houston was the worst matchup for passing games last year because they got the doors blown off of them so much. They didn't have to throw for most of the game. So I'm really high on Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers this year. I don't think week 1 is going to be the time to shine, but You could take a shot and maybe one of those finds the end zone. It could be a flex play. I don't think it's going to be the week one, but you want to see how the target share really pans out in this game. Is it going to be Bateman and Flowers? Is it going to be all to the tight end, whether it's Andrews or Likely? Is it going to be pass heavy, or are we still going to see a run first offense? So I don't see a major upset in this one personally, but Joel, what do you got?
Yeah, I tend to definitely agree with you and lean that way, especially when I know Houston last year tended to have some times where they definitely were competitive and looked like maybe they could go ahead and win. But case here, even though I know people who try to make the case for Houston going that, well, Mark Andrews is not 100% and he's the safety blanket for Lamar. And very few of Baltimore's starters played in the preseason. But on the flip side of it, Houston has both a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. So I've got to do a slam dunk, and I'm going Baltimore.
Yeah, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Strong as rookies versus a Super Bowl winning head coach in Harbaugh and an MVP in Lamar Jackson. It makes it very. I think Houston's highly competitive in this game and most of the season. I don't think they win. I'm taking Baltimore, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is one where Baltimore has to hold on late or has to come from behind at some point to get this win. I do think Houston's going to be a lot like Carolina this year. They're going to get better as the season goes on. Robert Woods on that team, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, John Mechie from last year who had the leukemia issue. He's supposed to be back. So they've got some pieces. Dalton Schultz will be good. It's getting this offense to gel. If that defense can come together, Houston can be good. I just don't think week number one going against a team like Baltimore is necessarily the best way for them to start 1-0. So I'm going to take Baltimore as well. And we move on to the newly minted highest paid player in NFL history in Joe Burrow, 5 years, $275 million. And the Cincinnati Bengals going into Cleveland to play Deshaun Watson, who broke the quarterback market with his fully guaranteed contract, and the Cleveland Browns. So this one, fantasy options abound all around. Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all going to be in your lineup for Cincinnati. You can even make the case for Irv Smith as a tight end dart throw. For the Browns, you are absolutely starting Nick Chubb. You're absolutely going to start Amari Cooper. Njoku and Deshaun Watson, both in consideration, depending on your need at the position. If you drafted Deshaun Watson or David Njoku, they're probably going to be in your lineup for most leagues. It's tough to see a world where Tyler Boyd gets going, but it could get weird. But this is one where I think your running backs and receivers really are going to have a big breakout game. This has the potential of being one of the highest scoring games of the week because both these offenses can absolutely explode. The question is, which team wins?
Because everything I think is definitely centered all around Burrow and his calf. Is it 100%? As we can go back to last year and yeesh, just one injury after another for Burrow, and now with this new calf injury, that was definitely the whole focus of the preseason. You just have to wonder how well he can get into the gelling with the new year. But still, I know even though Cleveland can score and like to run up the score, I think the Cincinnati defense will definitely be the main point here. And I think while both teams have some explosive weapons, gotta go Cincinnati. It's just until Cleveland shows me that they can do something, gotta go with Burrow.
I'm going to take Burrow as well. Remember last year his appendix pulled out in the preseason, didn't get any preseason time, didn't seem to affect him then. I think this is a team that is definitely one of the top contenders in the AFC and the NFL as a whole, because if you win the AFC, you're probably going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think Cincinnati is absolutely going to put up a ton of points in this game. Cleveland's going to have to try and keep up and just not quite be able to do it. I do think we see some encouraging signs from the Cleveland offense. We see Deshaun Watson look closer to what he was in Houston. We see Amari Cooper, maybe even Donovan Peoples-Jones or another receiver of some kind pop up and suddenly hit some fantasy relevance. But I'm going to take Cincinnati as well.
How How many weeks do you give Watson, since last year, of course, wasn't a full start because of the suspension? How many weeks do you give Watson before, okay, we need to be concerned?
If you're talking on the field production for the Browns, he's getting the full season as long as he's healthy. If you're talking fantasy,
Both.
it's a different answer. So the Browns are going to give him full season if he's healthy. He signed a massive contract. He's going to be the guy. And if it's bad, they're going to have to burn it all down. And hopefully for Cleveland and their fans, that's not the case. But Deshaun Watson is healthy. Deshaun Watson gets a start. I know DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, was very good in the preseason, but some preseason heroes are just that. They're preseason heroes because they're playing backup. So I don't think there's any chance he gets pulled off the field. As far as fantasy, let's look at a couple weeks. So he's got Cincinnati week 1 and then Pittsburgh week 2. I think by week 4, if you haven't seen something that at least gives you some hope, it's probably time to maybe start trying to play the streaming game. You didn't draft Deshaun Watson like you did Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields or Herbert or Burrow in those 3rd, 4th round kind of ranges. You can throw Deshaun Watson back to the waiver wire in most leagues and return something that is streamable. Not the 16-teamer that we're in where 30 got drafted, but your standard 10-team league where 10 to 11 quarterbacks are rostered. You can go get another quarterback pretty easily. So I'd say if you're playing him, give him 3-4 weeks. And then if it still looks like he is not back, maybe that's just how he is from now on. You throw him back to the Wolves. I also think we got a week 5 bye. So that might be a good natural time to throw him back anyways. Yes, week 5 bye. Anyways, so we're both on Cincinnati then. And then we go to one that I'm pretty sure we're both going to be on the same page as well. Jacksonville going to Indianapolis to play another rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, for Jacksonville. Etienne, Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, where you drafted him, is going to have to be in the starting lineup. Evan Ingram should probably be in the starting lineup as a tight end. Christian Kirk, flex option possibility. But yeah, for the Colts, Deion Jackson becomes not a bad start with Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor both out. Evan Hull is the other running back there. So I think Jackson's going to get most of the work. Hull will get some work as well. They're going to run hot hand. So if he starts off good, Deion Jackson's going to get all of it. If nothing else, if you have someone on your roster like a Sky Moore that you can drop and put him on the lineup so nobody else can get him, especially your opponent, that might be a worthwhile play as well. Rest of the Colts, Anthony Richardson's, I think, going to be a very good fantasy asset, but not necessarily someone you want to rely on week 1. But you could have put yourself in a corner where you have to. And then Michael Pittman, flex option at best. I want to see what this offense looks like before I really put any of these guys in my lineup. Jacksonville's a solid, not spectacular defense. So Indianapolis could get something going and look decent, or Jacksonville can come out and absolutely dominate this game. But Joel, who do you got?
This is going to be a true litmus test, I think, of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Easy for me to say. Early on in the season, we remember how they finished the season. They really had to win the last 5 games just to get in to the playoffs. And, it wasn't exactly what you would call a confidence play. And, of course, they're going to the place where it is their kryptonite. They have lost 8 of the last 9 trips to Indy. 2017 was the last time they won a game in Indianapolis, and the Jaguars have been they're really pumped up. And this is the question: are they pumped up enough? Everyone's saying, okay, this is their division. This is their year. I remember when we were talking about them in some of the fantasy previews and in the division, you were saying, okay, are they ready to ascend? This is going to be their test. If they can go to their kryptonite, if they can go to Indianapolis and beat them handily. I mean, they've got Calvin Ridley. I know that they have a hole or two, especially in that offensive line. We'll have to see how much that affects Trevor Lawrence. But I just have a hard time picking, even though I know they beat them last year. The Colts are a horrible team. The Colts really don't have an offense. We still don't know what the heck is going on with Jonathan Taylor and all that mess. I think this is going to be the year that the Jaguars can go. And even if it's an ugly win, they can somehow come away and put the Colts curse to rest. I mean, hey, if the Lions can go into Arrowhead and beat them, I think the Colts can do the same and take out the Colts.
Yeah, Jacksonville was a lot less talented those games you mentioned when they have the terrible record going into Indianapolis. And Indianapolis was a better team in a lot of those games. So I don't know how much looking back at the historicals you can bank on. I'm taking Jacksonville as well. Yes, psychologically there could be some. Okay, we won in Indianapolis. We got that monkey off our back. We're going to be fine. I also think this is one of those where if Jacksonville goes in and they don't stomp them, it could almost be a negative mental thing. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Jacksonville's going to take care of business here. But the concern with Jacksonville is that they are still fairly young. They have only really had a few games last year where they had a great stretch of games. Outside of that, they weren't anything special. So going in and losing to Indianapolis would be very shocking and very detrimental to the team. I do think Jacksonville's ready to take that next step, and I think they do get the win on Sunday. And we move on to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Minnesota to play the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh boy.
For the Buccaneers, Godwin and Evans going to be in your starting lineups. Rachaad White, maybe a flex consideration, not someone I'm super excited about. Baker Mayfield in super flex leagues is a sneaky good play, I think, this week against that soft Minnesota defense. And then Cade Otton could be a dart throw for the tight end position. For Minnesota, I struggle to recommend Alexander Mattison because Tampa Bay is very good against the run, but I think the Vikings will find a way to get some good production out of him. He's probably going to be in your lineup where you draft him. Justin Jefferson for sure in your lineup. TJ Hawkinson for sure in your lineup. Jordan Addison, I don't think you want to play him this week. It could be a mistake not to in retrospect, but you don't know what his role is quite yet. You probably have some more secure options at the wide receiver. You draft him in the 8th, 9th round. You should have a couple of better options to play in his place for right now. And then, Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's Kirk Cousins. He's going to have his great games. He's going to have his bad games. Tampa Bay's defense is not a slouch, so maybe this isn't the best game for him, but could be at least a streaming option for you. Tampa Bay, I know you don't have high hopes for the season. Minnesota was a team that thrived on dominating the close games, winning them the hard way, 11-0 in one-score games, and when they didn't win, they got demolished. So, is this a game where Tampa Bay shows us that we were wrong?
As much as I would like to hope that something really good happens on Sunday, you tend to look at some of the glaring problems going on with Tampa that, of course, you mentioned the Mike Evans and the contract. He's also dealing with a groin injury. He also had the center that Baker Mayfield was getting to have some chemistry with, now out for the entire year. So you're going to have a backup behind the key position of quarterback. As always, just sort of it's just symbolic to me that you have Baker Mayfield wearing 6, which is half of Tom Brady 12, and I'm going, okay, I hope he can be half of what Brady was like when he was out there. As just Tampa Bay is just, I know all the hype is out there. They're trying to say, well, hey, we're still going to wreck people and do this, but they're still just not a good team. And I wouldn't be surprised if they hit their under this year. I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence just solely because the quarterback. And even when you saw some of those horrific games when you had the GOAT behind center last year. Minnesota is a very, very noisy place, very difficult to play. And I just don't have a lot of confidence in Todd Bowles as a coach. I mean, just next to nothing at all until they can show me something. I mean, and Flores likes to blitz. as the defensive coordinator. And so I know Tampa Bay's motif is definitely defense, and that's what they're going to have to lean on. But I think Minnesota is going to be a close trip. It's going to be maybe a closer game. God, I hope. I hope this isn't like a blowout first game of the entire year. But I just can't pick the Bucks with confidence in Minnesota, and I know it's a not a divisional pick; it's a conference pick. But I know, you look at Madison as opposed to Dalvin Cook and, Kirk Cousins, which Kirk Cousins shows up. Is it the 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins or is it the prime time Kirk Cousins, even though he sort of got the monkey off his back at least once last year? I got to go with the Vikings. I just don't have a lot of confidence this year in my Bucks at all. I'm sorry.
I think this is going to be a very close game. This might be one of the better games of the week. Mostly because Minnesota doesn't put teams away, and I think Tampa's going to show up a little better than we expect. I know you're as down on Baker Mayfield as you can really get. I think he's going to be just fine. I really think that he had a rough deal in Cleveland. He was playing injured for a lot of that last season in Cleveland. Then he bounced around just because he didn't get the good fit, didn't get the good opportunity in a couple places. Now, well, he's got the starting role. He's got two great weapons, and he's got a decent enough running game. Kate Otten is a bailout option in a good defense. So I think this would be a closer game. I'm taking Minnesota as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come out of this game going, you know what? Tampa might not be so bad after all.
Wouldn't mind that at all. I just don't have the confidence in making that pick.
We want to see it first. I agree with you. We want to see it first before we start thinking that way, but Minnesota, again.
Show us what you got, Bucks.
Minnesota struggled to put teams away. They kept a lot of teams in games before winning it. If Tampa loses this game 31-28 and Baker looks good, I don't think you come out of that as a Bucks fan with a negative attitude. You go, well, you know what? We actually, like, if Detroit would have lost that game because they got a late field goal on that last drive, I don't think Lions fans go, oh, same old Lions. I think they go out of that, we stood toe-to-toe with the champs and had a shot. I think you would say we stood toe-to-toe with one of the better teams in the conference, and we had a shot. So I take Minnesota, but I hope Tampa is more competitive than we're expecting, and we move on.
Here.
Tennessee going to New Orleans. New Orleans has been my defensive pick in fantasy most of the year because they don't really play anybody, and this could be their toughest matchup on the entire season in week number 1. So for Tennessee, you're playing Derrick Henry.
And that could be sort of a duh.
Yeah, that could be the end of list. Of course, Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins, okay, consider him. DeAndre Hopkins probably going to be in your lineup based on week 1, where you had to draft him, but not a big passing game team, not a big passing opportunity offense. So we'll see what he looks like. Again, I kind of want to see it first. Chig Okonkwo at tight end is interesting as well. For the Saints, Tennessee had a bad secondary. So Chris Olave, I think, is a very good play. Juwan Johnson at tight end is a very good play. Michael Thomas, definitely risky, but if he's what he was, this could be a good play. And by default, I think Derek Carr is going to be good as well. I don't know what you do with that backfield yet because the Saints do not have Alvin Kamara on the suspension. Is it going to be Kendre Miller? Is it going to be Jamal Williams? Probably going to be Williams more than anything. You might have some better options at the running back position for sure. So this one of the tougher games I thought to pick. I thought this could be one of those where Tennessee ground and pounds and just keeps the ball away from that Saints offense, wears down the defense, and then there's opportunities where New Orleans gets a couple stops early, puts up some points, and the Titans are out of their game plan. So, Joe, who do you got?
Definite toss-up, but when I'm looking at both of these teams, I tend to look at who has the better ground weapons. Unquestionably, I know you tend to have a lot of question about Ryan Tannehill, especially after last year, but have to go with the Tennessee and Derrick Henry's in this case. Now, if you had Alvin Kamara back, I might be leaning a little bit more to the Saints, but no AK. Not really sure how Derek Carr is going to do in his first trial. So, I could easily make the case for the Saints because when their defense is on, you got Marshawn Lattimore, who has had a whole offseason to rest and rejuvenate and get back into his mojo. But I just got to go with the Titans. They're the ones that have the ground weapon, and King Henry is ready to feast yet again.
Yeah, I think this is a game that's going to hit the under for the most part, but I'm actually taking New Orleans in this one. I think Derrick Henry can have 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Titans only score 17 points. I just don't think this passing game is going to get going against New Orleans. New Orleans, I think they're going to be able to capitalize with Chris Olave, even Michael Thomas, maybe Raheed Shaheed gets involved, Juwan Johnson. I think this passing game is going to look good. I think Derek Carr has the biggest I need to prove myself chip in the league. And a team like Tennessee, their defense is solid up front. They're going to be able to stop the running game. So maybe not having Kamara and the temptation to run the ball as much, not necessarily the worst thing for them. Maybe they'll force them to throw the ball a little bit more. I'm going to take New Orleans in what should be about a 21-17 type of game. And we move on to San Francisco at Pittsburgh. This one is screaming for the under. I'm just saying that now. For San Francisco, you're going to be playing Christian McCaffrey. You're going to be playing Deebo Samuel. You're probably going to be playing Brandon Ayuk. Keep an eye on the George Kittle news tomorrow. He is dealing with an injury. If he plays, you draft him where you draft him. You're going to have to play him. For Pittsburgh, Deontay Johnson in your lineup, Najee Harris in your lineup, Pat Freiermuth in your lineup. Beyond that, a little bit risky. And I would say temper your expectations on those players across the board on both sides because these defenses are absolutely legitimate. Brock Purdy is risky. Kenny Pickett's extremely risky. But this could be a game that is more entertaining than we realize. I do think it's going to be very defensive, but there's going to be some plays that get broken. That's going to determine a game. Who wins?
This game is the cut and dry, I think, for the most part, because I know anybody who's going to try to make the case for Pittsburgh is going to say, well, Brock Purdy is not at 100%. They're going to point out George Kittle, injury. How much does that affect the offense? But I still think when you look at all the weapons for San Francisco, you have their proven they were pretty close to the Super Bowl. Not quite there yet. They're a lot closer than the Steelers have been in some time. So, that being said, as much as you can, I would be maybe a little bit more comfortable going for an spread pick for the Steelers. Money line, I don't know about it. I still think that San Francisco is the better cohesive unit. They have the better offense. They have the better defense. And Pittsburgh is one of those teams. They've had all this hype, all this talk that they can take the division and maybe even farther. But got to go San Francisco. Pittsburgh is one of those. Show me what you got. Then I'll start to believe.
This one was the toughest one for me, and I am going with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is at home, so that's part of it. And Pittsburgh, I know it's the preseason, but they looked absolutely dominant on defense in the preseason. I think that carries over. Brock Purdy coming off that UCL injury didn't get a lot of time to work. I wonder how he's going to look game number one against a very good defense, a very healthy Pittsburgh defense, which is going to have Watt in there for the first time in a while. I think Pittsburgh's going to be really, really good this year. I think Freiermuth and I think Deontay and I think Najee Harris, George Pickens. I think they can stand toe-to-toe weapon-wise with the San Francisco offense. I think Christian McCaffrey is absolutely outstanding. He's definitely the better running back of the two. But outside of that, I think it's fairly balanced. And I just kind of have the sneaking feeling that San Francisco is going to come in a little bit flat. Brock Purdy's going to look a little bit off. And the Steelers are going to get the job done in a very low-scoring 2017 type of game. But I do think Pittsburgh takes it at home. We'll see what happens. Next up, Arizona going to Washington. Arizona fully expected to be picking number one next year. They're going to be real bad. Washington was a 500 team last year.
Do you like the whole deal where Kellen is like, if I don't like where I'm potentially going to be going, I think I'll just stay back in school. So that almost means that he knows that Arizona is trying for him and he doesn't want to go to Arizona.
I don't blame him for not wanting to go to Arizona. Now, that being said, Kyler Murray is still there, and he's got a big contract. So I don't know how easy it is for them to just get away from that. But all of that being said, we'll see what happens. Arizona, though, at Washington, you're going to play James Conner. Keep an eye on the Hollywood Brown news with the injury. If he plays, I think you have to play him. He's just too much a part of that offense. But it's going to be real bad. It's going to be real rough for Washington. I think Johan Dotson and Terry McLaurin and the wide receivers are both very good plays, but keep in mind this could be like the Texans last year, where by halftime the game is over. So I think the play here is Brian Robinson. I think he might be the best play week number one against this terrible, terrible defense. Antonio Gibson will be fine as well, but I think it's going to be kind of like a Montgomery Gibbs kind of split where Robinson gets a lot more opportunity and he's going to be playing a much worse defense. So I think he can go absolutely explode in this game. Who do you got?
Yeah, you're just looking at last year, Arizona's offense without Kyler Murray averaged just 16 points per game. And you're looking at Arizona is going to start Josh Dobbs at quarterback. Wasn't that the guy who filled in at Tennessee when Tannehill
and
was?
technically we don't know.
Yeah.
They're expected, but they're playing it close to the vest.
Because it was Kyler Murray. No. Apparently now there's something going on. And then they released Colt McCoy, who was the next person who everybody thought that was going to start. And now they're starting Josh Dobbs at quarterback, a guy who they just traded for a week ago. So zilch on the preseason, and we're talking a whole new system. I gotta pick the Commanders in this one.
Yeah, it's foolish to pick Arizona here, so I'm going to pick Washington as well. I'm curious to see what happens with Kyler Murray season long, if he comes back at all. ACL injuries take about a year to heal. He got it pretty late in the season. A running quarterback, their season is going to be done and over with before he is healthy, I'm sure. I'm going to take Washington this one. And as far as the long-term prospect for the Cardinals and if Caleb Williams wants to go to that team or not, I can't say. But I think you've got someone in Kyler Murray you can build around still. You can go and use that first-round pick you're going to have this year, which will be early, and Houston's, which you traded for in the draft. So you can go get Will Anderson and build kind of quickly. So hopefully for Arizona, they can trust the process correctly, but I'm taking Washington week number one. And next up, we go to Green Bay at Chicago. For the first time in a very long time, Chicago is favored over the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay will be without Christian Watson, so Romeo Doubs, if he plays, is going to be the number one option in the passing game. I think this could be a Luke Musgraves breakout game, similar to what we saw with Sam Laporta on Thursday. Rookie tight end could have a big one. Jordan Love, probably not going to play him in fantasy this week. You want to see what he does first. I think Doubs probably going to be on your bench as well, but he could be a very sneaky play. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, I think, are both at the very least in your lineups consideration. Jones, you probably draft him to be your running back too. He's in your lineup. A.J. Dillon could be a flex option as well. For Chicago, Justin Fields, play him. Don't think about it. DJ Moore, flex or wide receiver 2 type of option. Khalil Herbert should be at least considered in that same vein. Cole Kmet, a tight end option as well. I feel like this is going to be one of those games where we're not playing a lot of these guys fantasy-wise because, well, you drafted Dobbs late. You drafted DJ Moore in that flex area. Maybe there's a better matchup. Cole Kmet maybe didn't get drafted in some leagues. I think there's going to be a lot of options in this game that do better and are on benches or on the waivers, but I think this could be a shockingly high-scoring game. Chicago's in a real bad defense and a really strong offense, so only time will tell, but who gets the win?
Yeah, and right now, if you are counting on Justin Fields to have a good week one, you might be a little bit concerned when, Bears not exactly close to full strength. Their offensive line is in shambles to start out the season, and you have to wonder how that's going to affect the offense and just how things are going to progress. And I know everybody wants to get behind Justin Fields and really had good chemistry with DJ Moore and hoping that continues on into the regular season. But I know I don't have a lot of confidence in picking the Packers. I don't love the pun definitely intended, but right now I tend to have just a little bit more confidence in picking the Packers than I do the Chicago Bears.
I'm taking Chicago. Their offensive line was terrible last year, and they got the job done, or at least Justin Fields did. If their defense can step up at all, I think Chicago is going to have a really nice day. I will say the Christian Watson missing this game did change my pick. It was a very close game to begin with, but with Christian Watson out, that did flip me from taking Green Bay to taking Chicago. I think that's going to be a bigger loss. It limits that passing game. And again, I think Chicago might say, okay, we're going to shut down the running game. We're going to shut down the run game. We're going to put 2 over the top with Dobbs. Beat us. Jordan Love, if you can beat us with your number 3 passing receiver option, go right ahead. And I do want to caution everybody about the offensive line for Chicago. It was abysmal last year, and Justin Fields got the job done, ran all over the place, and kept that team competitive. DJ Moore is going to be better. I think Khalil Herbert and Rashawn Johnson are better than David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert worked last year. And I just have a funny feeling Chicago's going to sneak up on at least a couple teams this year and get them when you don't expect them. Green Bay, unfortunately, I think they're going to have the growing pains of Jordan Love week number 1 and no Christian Watson. I think it's just going to be a little too much to overcome. So I'm going to take Chicago in what I think could be one of the higher scoring games of the week and a very close matchup. All right, next up, Las Vegas going to Denver. Josh Jacobs in your lineup. Davante Adams in your lineup. That might be end of list for this game. I mean, Javonte Williams is in consideration, but he's on a snap count. Do you want to play Samaje Perine? Do you want to play McLaughlin or whatever his name is, who's also going to need some touches in that backfield? Do you really trust Cortland Sutton? Do you really trust Greg Dulcich, who might be behind Adam Troutman? I don't know. Jerry Jeudy, I don't think it's been ruled out yet. So, but he's coming off a hamstring injury. So there's a lot of unknowns in this game. I think if you go beyond Jacobs and Adams, it's probably Sutton and Jeudy, and you're not thrilled about it. But Las Vegas is not a good defense. Jimmy Garoppolo not in consideration. Russell Wilson. Oh boy. I'm playing him in a super flex league where I only have 2 quarterbacks. I don't love it, but this is a good matchup. So if you need a streaming quarterback, hypothetically you drafted nobody or you drafted the last round pick and it wasn't someone you're happy about, maybe he's out there on the waivers and you can pick him up and you'll be all right. I don't know. This is going to be a very interesting game, I think, for both sides to see what they've got. So who gets the win?
Raiders are 6-0 against Denver since they moved to Vegas, as they have dominated this series lately. And yeah, you look at the change in coaching, and I know, Sean Payton has to be better than Hackett, right? I mean, anybody has to be better than Hackett, but I know that the Raiders wide receiver core doesn't exactly wow you, but at least they're healthy, unlike the Broncos wide receiver core where they're pretty much all injured. You're trying to be like, I'm scrolling to find who's the wide receiver now. So yeah, I know the Raiders aren't exactly a team that inspire confidence on, not that the Broncos don't either, but yeah, got to hold my nose, and I'm going Raiders.
I'm going to go Denver. I don't love it. Denver does have a better defense. I do think Josh Jacobs can get a very good game and still find a way for the Vegas Raiders to lose this. Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think he's going to get that passing game going the way that Derek Carr did. And I think Davante Adams might disappoint a little bit. And then I guess I'm believing that Russell Wilson can be fixed, and bring in someone like Sean Payton will help. I think Cortland Sutton's another year removed from that knee injury. He could come up and take the next step. If Jerry Jeudy can play, I think there's enough offensive weapons on that outside that they're going to be good. Don't forget Marvin Mims, the rookie, could be an impact player this week.
You have to love the Payton quote to Russell Wilson: "Stop kissing babies. You're not running for office."
Yeah. I mean, Russell Wilson's an odd guy, but I think getting a coach like Payton can only help him. So I'm going to take the shot on Denver at home, at elevation. And, Josh Jacobs didn't get any run in the preseason. We'll see what condition he's in. Going to elevation could be tough. All right, next up. This could be the game of the week. Miami at the Chargers. Tua versus Herbert. Both options should be started. This could be I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week, even though the Dolphins have a much improved defense. Tyreek Hill's in your lineup. Keenan Allen's in your lineup. Mike Williams, Jalen Waddle in your lineup. I think Raheem Mostert has to be considered at the very least. Austin Eckler's going to be in your lineup. You could look at the tight ends more for the Chargers than anything, but this is a fantasy bonanza. This is going to be a game that both teams might score 30 points. It's going to be an absolute shootout, and I think whether it's ever put out there this way or not, Tua wants to prove he was the correct pick over Justin Herbert, and Herbert wants to prove that the Dolphins did not draft correctly when they went 5-6 overall when they got drafted. So both quarterbacks will have a little extra on the chip on the shoulder this week. Tua with all the injury concerns, I think this is going to be an absolutely barn burner game of the week, possibly game of the year if it works out the way I'm kind of hoping it does. But two very good teams. One's going to start 1-0. One's going to start 0-1. Who you got?
As the two definite injury concerns for Miami, Armstead and Waddle. So
Armstead officially out already.
So just a little bit of, and I know you have two very dynamic offenses about to go that, but just for that little bit, and I wouldn't be shocked if I'm wrong and Miami ends up winning the game, but got to go with the guy who I ended up rolling with, and maybe not this year, I think maybe one league, but got to go with Justin Herbert and got to roll with the Chargers.
I'm taking Miami. I think that they are the better offense. I think with Tyreek and Waddle, they are more dynamic in the passing game. Raheem Mostert is very capable. Devon Achane is going to be there as well. Obviously, Austin Eckler is the best running back in this game, but I think at the end of the day, Dolphins defense is more complete than the Chargers, and that could be the ultimate difference in this one. Maybe it's a late Bradley Chubb tackle or sack that saves this game. I'm thinking 38-35 type of score in this one, but I'm taking Miami, and we move on. Next up, Philadelphia going to New England for the Eagles. You are going to be starting Jalen Hurts. You're going to be starting A.J. Brown. You're going to be starting Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. For the Patriots, typically this would be a Ramondre Stevenson. You're going to play him, but there was a little bit of a oddity on Friday where he was hurt or not practicing, and he's only expected to play. If he plays, he's going to be in your lineup, but keep an eye. Something squirrely is going on. You don't want to bank on him in a late window game and then have him miss and have to scramble to find a viable backup option if you have any available at that point. So keep that in mind. Philadelphia coming off their Super Bowl loss. New England coming off of a third place result in the AFC East and arguably the bottom team this year. So they have a lot to prove. Who gets the W?
Yeah, normally if this were a few years ago, you would probably pick the Patriots back with Belichick and Brady were pretty much ruling over the entire league. But the tides have shifted, and definitely Bill Belichick seems to be being left behind slowly but surely, and he definitely historically struggles against mobile quarterbacks. I don't think you have a quarterback who's more mobile than Jalen Hurts. We saw what he did last year when he was in your fantasy lineup, what the difference was to when he got injured and you had to go out and scramble somebody and you were just going, please, I hope I can win this week. As New England has definitely gone through some changes. I'm not sure if they've done enough to help them as you just have the Eagles, whose defense was number one in yards per play last year, and they just keep adding more weapons. And you just sort of feel like the New England Patriots have been left behind. They had a couple of games last year where they kind of surprised everybody by winning, but I have a hard time, even though I know it's at Foxborough. If you go back in time machine a couple of years ago, you'd probably say, well, slam dunk, take the Patriots. Not in the modern era. Have to take the Eagles.
Yeah, you got to take the Eagles here. They're just the better team, offensively and defensively. The Patriots, of course, with Juju Smith-Schuster and Devontae Parker as their top receiving options going up against A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. I don't know how that running game for the Eagles is going to shake out. I think it's going to be a four-headed monster, but That might be the only thing that the Patriots have better than them is the Zeke and Ramondre stack at the running back position. But outside of that, I think the Eagles are just a better team.
Well, what about the Eagles and DeAndre Swift? Can he have a re-emergence?
Can he? Yes. Will he? I don't think so. Not this week. We don't know if it's going to be Penny, Swift, Gainwell, Boston Scott. I want to see how this backfield shakes off before I have to make any kind of decisions. I did not draft anybody from the Eagles backfield for exactly the reason as I don't want the headache. So if you drafted Rashad Penny and he works out, congratulations. If it's DeAndre Swift or anybody else, good job. But I think it's still a little too early to risk it. You drafted them late enough where they shouldn't be forced into your lineup based on draft capital. You should be able to say, okay, let me see how this looks after week number 1 and reevaluate from there. All right, last game before we get to Sunday night. Los Angeles Rams going to the Seattle Seahawks. For the Rams, no Cooper Kupp. That makes Tyler Higbee a much more desirable play. I think Cam Akers has to be in your lineup as well. And Matt Stafford, I don't know who he's going to throw to. Van Jefferson maybe, but not ideal to play Stafford this week. Van Jefferson could be a flex consideration, but not great. I do think Akers is a great play. Seattle's run defense was not spectacular last year, so they could get the job done, and Higbee again. For Seattle, Kenneth Walker was on the injury report, but he got pulled off. I think you play him. We'll see what that role is. It could be scary. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in your lineup. Wait a week for Jackson Smith and Jigba. See what he looks like. Geno Smith is a very good streaming option, especially if you said I went with, I don't know, Anthony Richardson, and I got Geno Smith as a backup. See what Richardson is down the line, but play Geno this week. In daily, Geno could be a very good option as well. Seattle, playoff team last year. Rams, only a year removed from the Super Bowl, so who gets the win?
Yeah, this one you tend to look at, okay, well, Stafford's still healthy, but no Cooper Kupp. Who does he throw to? I think that's the biggest question for the entire game. As I can just imagine, not a lot of people are placing those tickets on the side of the Rams, especially with how Seattle did last year. I know that can set them up for a bit of regression this year, but they got to go with the Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm taking Seattle as well. I think the Rams defense is not on the same page as the Seattle defense. I do think Seattle's offense at this point is a lot better considering they do have all of their weapons versus the Rams who are missing their best player in Cooper Kupp. So I'm going to take Seattle. Probably not a close game, but it could be something that is a little more competitive than we realize as Joel disappears. But yeah, Rams, they could be a sneaky team, but I really think if they're going to be competitive in this game, it's going to be on the back of Cam Akers, and I just don't think he's going to get the job done that well that Cam Akers is going to lead this team to consideration. So I'm going to take Seattle as Joel rejoins us, and we move on to Dallas at the New York Giants for Sunday Night Football, the obligatory NBC Dallas Giants game, and we'll get out of the way nice and early. Both of these teams were playoff teams. Both teams got knocked out in the divisional round, so on that should be a fairly even matchup for Dallas. Dak Prescott probably going to be started if you drafted him. Not a great play in my book, but we'll see. Tony Pollard in your lineup. He's going to be great all season long. And then CeeDee Lamb also going to be played in this one. I don't think there's a whole lot there for Dallas outside of those. For the Giants, you could get freaky with Daniel Jones. He does have some running upside, but Dallas has a very good defense. Darren Waller, if he's healthy and playing, has to be in your lineups, but he did have a little bit of a hamstring pull. We'll see what he is able to do. And then Saquon Barkley, of course, has to be in your lineups. Outside of that, the Giants receiving core might be as bad as Kansas City was, but we'll see what they look like. Again, this is one where you want to see a game or two before you really dive in. Is it Sterling Shepard? Is it Jalen Hyatt? Is it someone else? I don't know. Let's see what they look like week number 1. Dallas and the Giants to wrap up our first football Sunday of the year. Who do you got?
Yeah, Cowboys don't have Dalton Schultz anymore, but you tend to look over at the Giants that can they score more than 21 points? Yeah, I mean, I know Saquon Barkley just re-signed the contract, and they had that season where they definitely exceeded what everybody thought what they were going to do, getting all the way to the playoffs and past the wild card round. But yeah, I know as much gray clouds as there tends to be over the Cowboys. I think with that new offense and a quarterback that hasn't played all preseason pretty much, I think the Cowboys are going to be the fresher team. They've got it more together. It's prime time. They're going into the Big Apple. They need to make a statement that, hey, we're really not going to collapse, even though everybody pretty much knows that they are going to late. But hey, this is early season. I remember what they did last year. So, yeah, I think they sort of do it again. They get everybody's hopes up again, and they just crush the Giants. I know the Giants. You've got Terry Pollard. Zeke is gone off to New England. So I still think that they have a potent enough offense to get the job done week one. I have a lot more confidence in the Cowboys than I do in the Giants.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a better game than you might expect, but I do think the Dallas Cowboys win. I think Tony Pollard is going to be the big difference. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Giants repeating what they did last year, and the Dallas Cowboys have an exceptional defense. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game. 2017, not outside of the realm of possibility. Dallas, though, I think gets the job done. Tony Pollard has a big, big night to set the tone for what he's going to do all season long. But the
Yeah,
Dallas Cowboys start off 1-0, and we start hearing
yeah,
them, "We damn boys, it's our year." Crap, that's
yeah,
not going to pan out.
and Dak usually does well in division.
He does, and we'll see. He's going to make mistakes, but I think it's going to be enough. And especially Darren Waller is questionable, so we'll see if he can play at all. If he is out, which let me see if I can get the latest update. If he is out, it really puts the Giants in a bind in the passing game because it's Darren Waller or bust. It seems like hamstring injury not believed to be serious. Waller will be monitored throughout the weekend with hopes that the tight end will be able to suit up for week one in the Sunday night matchup. So that's not what you want. Week one, Sunday night football tight end decision. So it may be smart if you have another option to play over Darren Waller. That's going to be in deeper leagues and dynasty leagues. But if he plays, I think you have to put him in there and risk that injury. And we go to the last game of the week. Monday Night Football, Buffalo at the New York Jets. The debut of Aaron Rodgers in a Jets jersey in meaningful football. Buffalo, odds are favorite to win that division still. Josh Allen in your lineup. Stephon Diggs in your lineup. I don't know how I feel about Kincaid in your lineup yet, but there's some pretty good buzz. Gabe Davis, at least a flex consideration. James Cook in consideration for running back 2 or flexes as well for the Bills. For the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, there are leagues he didn't get drafted in. There's leagues he's going to have to be played. Tough matchup to start the season. I don't think he's the right play this week, but only time will tell. Garrett Wilson's going to be in your lineup. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook at least have to be considered. I personally would not want to be part of that situation, but if you drafted Breece Hall, you probably have to play him just because we don't know where that split's going to really end up, especially week one with Breece coming off that ACL injury. And then, both defenses are fairly viable in this one as well. So, does Aaron Rodgers start his Jets career with a win?
Yeah, because you tend to look at both teams and you're trying very hard to look and go, okay, Buffalo just has to slam dunk do this, right? Yeah, but you realize you tend to look in the crystal ball from last year, and Josh Allen didn't play so well in the Jets in either game. In the second game, that's the one where he hurt his elbow, and just things sort of started to go south for him after that. As the Bills' biggest weakness tends to be the O line, and the Jets' pass rush is their biggest strength. So Yeah, I know I could be turning around and a little bit of egg on my face here by making this pick, but yeah, I tend to think that New York Jets could come out big with their first surprise win on Monday Night Football just because it is traditionally not a good place that Buffalo tends to play in. So it could be one of those Buffalo ends up getting out of there with the skin in their teeth victory. But I know I'm kind of crazy. I have a feeling you're probably going to go contrarian here, but I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm picking the Jets.
I'm not picking the Jets. I'm not buying. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on the Jets until I see it. And I think there's still going to be some gelling that needs to happen on this offense. We don't know the role of Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook. Is it how much of a timeshare is anybody going to get into a rhythm? Does Aaron Rodgers really have that chemistry with Garrett Wilson? It's all well and good to throw against air and look good with a great wide receiver and a great quarterback. Put some defensive players out there, and don't forget the Buffalo defense is no slouch. Um, I have more faith in what I know, and that's the big one. I think that James Cook's going to be motivated to one up his brother on the other side for one. So I think the running game might actually be a strength for Buffalo in this game. And frankly, I think Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs are going to be good enough to at least fight off the coverage of Sauce Gardner and the good secondary. And if they can't, then all of a sudden Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid could just pop. I think there's just too many weapons on Buffalo, and I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on the Jets until I see it. And I have a funny feeling I'm going to come out of this game still not thinking the Jets are what we've been hyped up to believe. So I'm taking Buffalo for better or worse. I'm taking the Bills to win to close out week number 1. With that, let's go to final thoughts. Joel.
All right, you knew it was coming because everybody was celebrating on the Lions. They beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and my one thought was, well, what about the injury to Kelsey? Is anybody going to say something about that? Ding, ding, ding. NBC's Mike Tirico said the Lions' Week 1 win has an asterisk due to the Chiefs' injuries and absences. So yeah, I know, Lions did it. They went in, they punched the Chiefs in the mouth, but and I know generally this quote is sort of taken into LOL type thinking, but yeah, one person is out there saying it that the one thing that all Chiefs people were probably saying on social media to anybody from Lions was, well, yeah, well, Kelsey was out. Kelsey was out. Well, come back and do that when Kelsey's in. So, yeah, you knew somebody had to say it. So,
Yeah. Um, to play devil's advocate here, Kelsey was out. Yep, sure. Um, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, and Jahmyr Gibbs, all with their first game with the Lions. Jamison Williams, wide receiver, is suspended for 6 games, who was supposed to be one of the best receivers they had.
don't gamble, kids.
So say what you will about Travis Kelsey being out. This Lions team had a lot of gelling to do on the offensive side, and they didn't look too bad. I think if you play this game in 7-8 weeks and all you add is Travis Kelsey, I think the Lions are still going to be very competitive. And as far as putting asterisks on win, does the Philadelphia Eagles NFC Championship banner have an asterisk for knocking out Brock Purdy and whoever the backup was, where it was down to no arm Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey at quarterback? Did they get out? You play who you
when
play.
when the backup quarterback was knocked out. Good God, that was a game.
You play who you play. Injuries happen. Holdouts happen. Don't make an excuse. You lost the game. Yeah, maybe Travis Kelsey is worth those 3 points you didn't get. That would have won you the game. But you didn't have him. You have the greatest quarterback in the NFL right now, possibly of all time. We'll see how that pans out. And you didn't get the job done. So it's hard for me to really be like, yeah, it deserves an asterisk. No, the Lions are 1-0. The Chiefs are doing what we're doing, 0-1. So Yeah, only time will actually tell. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Kadarius Toney, who did delete his Twitter X account after the game, after just dropping everything. I'm not even sure if he intentionally deleted his account or if he just dropped his phone on his foot after the game and it happened to hit delete. But this guy is the most infuriating player in football because he is very talented. We saw it in a couple games with the Giants, and we saw in the Super Bowl where he had some good impacts. And then he's got a lot of games like this where he just disappears. And if you draft him in fantasy, I hate to say you should drop him already, but he would drop himself because he can't catch anything right now. Yeah. I think he is just not ever going to pan out to be the player you were hoping he was going to be. He will have a game or two where, oh man, look how good that guy looks, and then he's going to go back to being hot garbage after that. So unfortunately, I think the Chiefs banked on him being the next coming of Tyreek Hill, and there's just not many players that can be Tyreek Hill. There's not many players that can be Devontae Adams or, Cooper Kupp or any of these high-end guys. You have to know what you're going for. Justin Jefferson. I think the Chiefs have to look into trading. Maybe it's Sky Moore, maybe it's Toney and some picks, and going after a receiver, maybe like a Mike Evans, just because they need a guy. When it was DeAndre Hopkins on the market, it was like, oh man, if he goes there, that's great. That's going to be awesome and he didn't go there. So I kind of think that Kadarius Toney proved that he's not the guy and showed the Chiefs that they need to go get a true wide receiver one type of guy to pair with Travis Kelce. Because again, if it's just Travis Kelce, a team is going to put their best defender, whether it's a safety or a corner, on Travis Kelce and say, okay, I know you're great, Pat, but we're going to make sure you can't break containment and run all over the place. And you're going to have to beat us with these second-class, third-class wide receivers that you clearly shouldn't have confidence in. So the Chiefs, I think Kadarius Toney has proven what he is, and they need to go get a wide receiver at some point this season, whether it's, Mike Evans or maybe a Treylon Burks if they can get him on the cheap because he doesn't pan out. I don't know. They have to do something, but that's my final thought for the day. So anyways, with all of that being said, that is it for week number 1. We will be back next week to recap
See how good or not
all
good.
of the carnage. Hopefully we'll both be above 500. We do have a lot of different picks this week, which is nice. And we'll see how it all pans out. Enjoy the first Sunday of the NFL season.
I am dreading my 16-team league tomorrow.
I think everybody does.
I just added Jamison Crowder, who was just promoted off of the practice squad for the Commanders. Does that tell you how bad I am at wide receiver?
It's a little bit rough. I know I actually had a pretty good night because I had Jahmyr Gibbs and the other person had Jerick McKinnon. So we're off to an early lead, folks, as Joel projected to lose by 18 because of Sky Moore's great start. I'm projected to lose by less than 1 point. So we'll see. 16-teamer we will keep an eye on. 10-teamer we will as well, of course.
Off to
this
a
board
start.
This board behind me is going to fill up with some records and standings very quickly as we are finally back to NFL and fantasy football. So with all of that being said, I am Flying Ryan Gokers along with
Tampa Motor Mouth, Joel Verone.
So enjoy week 1. Enjoy your fantasy football being back. Win or lose, at least have some fun with it, but you better win or else you're a loser. And with that, we gone.